In the middle of a brutal snowstorm, Amanda stood silently in front of the grocery store, staring at the last $20 bill in her hand. Under the awning, a homeless man huddled, shaking from the cold, chilling. After a moment's hesitation, she stepped forward and placed the money in his hand, not knowing that this action would change her life forever. The next morning, a mysterious letter appeared in front of her rented room, leading her to an unexpected encounter. And from there, a series of strange events began, each small piece gradually revealing a life-changing opportunity that she never thought of. Welcome to Kindness Stories, where small acts create big miracles. Today, we're going to explore a heartwarming story about kindness, sharing, and how a seemingly simple decision can change your life. Get your heart ready, because this story will touch you to the core. Kindness Story. Snow blanketed the narrow streets of Woodvale, where yellow streetlights flickered in the freezing fog. The wind was biting, turning Amanda's breaths into wisps of smoke that drifted through the air. Her old coat wasn't thick enough to keep her warm, but she was used to the cold, used to feeling alone, like her life had been lately. A long series of uncertain and exhausting days. Amanda had just left the small coffee shop where she worked as a waitress when she received a notice that she had been laid off. "We're having to cut staff," the manager said, looking apologetic. She didn't blame him, knowing that business was tough. But that didn't make her situation any easier. With her wallet empty, she had only $20 left in her wallet, the last thing she had to get through the week. Her numb feet dragged along the sidewalk, her mind spinning with vague thoughts. What should I do? What should I eat tonight? Where will I get the rent money for next week? The unanswered questions kept repeating in her head. Amanda's eyes stopped as she passed the old grocery store on the corner. Under the awning, a man was huddled. He was in his 60s, thin, with a face covered in dirt, his hair and beard disheveled, and he was wearing only a thin frayed shirt, his trembling hands rubbed together in an attempt to generate some warmth. Amanda stopped, her heart clenched. She knew how cold this was, and that the man would surely not be able to bear it in his clothes. Two thoughts battled in her head. I only have $20 left. If I give it to him, I'll have nothing. But then the look in his eyes reminded her of her father, the man who had worked hard to raise her, and who, no matter how poor he was, had always helped others. Never mind, Amanda sighed, reaching into her wallet. She pulled out a 20, the last one, a little crumpled but still intact. She knelt down to the man's level and gently placed the bill in his hand. "I don't have much, but I think you need it more than I do," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Bad move." The man looked up, his eyes filled with tears. He probably couldn't believe that a stranger could be so kind to him. Thank you, girl. God bless you," he stammered, clutching the bill in both hands, as if afraid it would disappear. Amanda smiled and nodded, then stood up and left. She didn't look back, but a strange feeling rose in her heart. Not regret, but relief. Even though the last of the money was gone, she felt like she had done the right thing. It was still cold, but there was something warmer in her heart than before. The distant sound of a car horn woke Amanda. Her tiny rented room was dimly lit. The alarm clock by her bed read 7:45 a.m. It was still dark outside, and snow was falling outside the window, heavier than last night. She pulled the old blanket up to cover her shoulders, trying to stay in bed for a few more minutes. But the cold seeping through the cracks in the window forced her to sit up. She said, "I need to find a job," she told herself, trying to stay awake. Her breakfast consisted of a slice of dry bread and a glass of water. Her stomach was rumbling, but she didn't complain. Living in poverty for so long had made her accustomed to deprivation. As she got out of bed and opened the front door to get the mail, she paused. A white envelope sat on the doorstep. The envelope was plain, with no postmark or return address. Her eyes narrowed in suspicion. Who would leave a letter on their doorstep? Picking up the envelope, she sat down at the dining table and slowly opened it. Inside was a neatly folded piece of white paper. The handwriting was neat and firm, unlike the handwriting of her friends or acquaintances. The content was as follows. Hello, Amanda. I witnessed your actions last night. No one forced you, no one asked you to do it, but you chose kindness over your own safety. Come to the Aurora Cafe, 12 Pine Street at 10 IEM today. A surprise awaits you. Don't worry, sometimes your kindness can be rewarded in ways you don't expect. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her eyes read each word. A second time. A third time. But then her eyes stopped at the last sentence. Sometimes your kindness can be rewarded in unexpected ways. A warm feeling filled her heart. Someone had witnessed her giving the money to the man last night. No one but her and the man knew about this. So this person wasn't a bad person, right? Dear God, her heart beat. She glanced at the clock. 8:15 a.m. She had almost 2 hours to decide whether to go or not. Her eyes scanned the small, empty room. No food, no money, and certainly no other options. Her questions to Jennifer remained silent. The pressure to confess herself was pushing them over. Nothing to lose, she told herself, sighing. I might as well go and see. She got up, washed her face, and changed into the cleanest clothes she had. A dark blue sweater and old jeans. Before leaving, she took the note with her again, carefully folded it and stuffed it into her coat pocket. Aurora Cafe. She had never been there before, but today it seemed like something was waiting for her there, something she herself could not have expected. Snow was still falling heavily as Amanda walked toward the Aurora Cafe. She pulled her neck deeper into her shawl, her breath billowing white before her. Along Pine Street, shops lined the streets, but most were still closed due to the harsh weather. Standing in front of the Aurora Cafe, she hesitated a bit. The small sign above it read, Aurora, warm coffee, warmer hearts, which made her smile slightly. She wasn't sure if she was being teased, but now that she was here, there was no turning back. She took a deep breath and opened the door. The doorbell rang softly. A wave of warmth rushed over her, dispelling the cold on her skin. The fragrant smell of coffee mixed with the smell of freshly baked pastries made her stomach growl. The cafe wasn't too crowded, only a few people sitting at the corner tables. A young waitress smiled and walked over. Are you alone? Please sit down, the girl said. Amanda nodded, her eyes still scanning the surroundings. Actually, I was invited here. Someone told me to come to this bar at 10. The clerk tilted her head curiously. Oh, you're Amanda, right? Amanda's heart jumped. Yes, it's me. Please follow me. The waiter led her to a more secluded corner, where there was an empty table with a cup of coffee already prepared. Amanda frowned. Someone had known she would be here. She sat down and glanced around, but saw no one paying special attention to her. She was about to ask the staff more, but at that moment, a deep voice rang out from behind her. Hello, Amanda. I'm glad you came. She turned around, startled. It was a tall, middle-aged man wearing a gray overcoat and a black scarf. He had chestnut hair, a neatly trimmed beard, and sharp but friendly eyes. Excuse me, who are you? She asked, unable to hide her surprise. The man sat down across from her, took off his gloves, and held out his hand to her. I'm Ethan Carter. You probably don't recognize me, but... I saw you last night. Amanda's eyes widened. You mean, you saw me? Yeah, Mr. Ethan smiled. I happened to be looking at the security camera footage outside the grocery store. I saw you give your last $20 to a homeless man. Amanda felt her face heat up. I just thought he needed it more than I did. Exactly, and not everyone would do that. Ethan leaned his hands on the table, his eyes sincere. We need more people like you in this world, Amanda. I'm here to thank you and make you an offer. What suggestion? She frowned, her eyes filled with doubt. We'll talk about that in a moment, but first, I'll buy you breakfast. Order anything you like. He smiled, and for the first time, Amanda felt real warmth. A week later, Amanda sat in front of her computer screen, her fingers moving across the keyboard. In the top corner of the screen, the words Carter and Partners were blaring, reminding her of the strange change in her life. After meeting at the coffee shop, Ethan Carter personally offered her a job at his company, a company that provides community support and charity services. Amanda's job was to be a coordinator, in charge of managing projects that provide food and clothing to the city's homeless. At first, Amanda thought it was a joke. I have no experience. I don't even know what facilitation is, she told Ethan. But he just laughed. Experience can be learned. Your heart can't be taught. The first days at the company were full of challenges. She had to learn how to use management software that she had never touched before. She had to coordinate with other employees, many of whom were skeptical of her abilities. A colleague named Sophia even asked her directly, "Are you sure you didn't get in here through connections?" Unlike most people, Sophia Gilenska could never refer to yoga as training. It was beneath her to take the classes, behavior or environmental ed to yoga. Amanda felt hurt by those words, but instead of protesting, she focused on her work. Every day, she arrived earlier than everyone else to learn how to use the software and understand the workflow. She didn't hesitate to ask for feedback from her colleagues. Although she sometimes made mistakes, she didn't hesitate to correct them. Late one afternoon, Amanda was typing food orders for a homeless shelter in her quiet office. Ethan happened to walk by and saw her still sitting there. He walked in and sat down next to her. "Are you working overtime?" he asked, resting his hands on the armrests of his chair. "Yes," Amanda replied, her voice shaking slightly. "I just wanted to make sure there were no mistakes on this list. I wrote a number down last time, and you had to correct it." Ethan chuckled warmly. "For this reason, I know I didn't make the wrong choice." He was silent for a moment, then continued. "Amanda, kindness is more than just giving $20 to someone. Kindness is about being patient, about learning not to hurt anyone, about trying to make things better. And you're doing all of those things. I'm so proud of you." Amanda's eyes stung. She said nothing, just looked down at the screen. But a sense of pride crept into her. For the first time in years, she felt valuable. She was no longer the poor, lonely girl who counted every penny in her purse. "Of course." And perhaps for the first time, she believed that giving away $20 that day was one of the best decisions of her life. But what was most remarkable was how she chose to give back to Ethan for the opportunity he had given her. She didn't keep it to herself. Every week, she still made time to volunteer for the company's charity drive, handing out blankets and food to the homeless. This time, it wasn't her last $20, but something more tangible. And every time, Amanda thinks back to the man huddled under the awning of the grocery store that day. That was the day she gave everything, but received more in return than she could have imagined. That winter, Amanda stood outside the gates of a homeless shelter, a list of items to be distributed. It was still cold, with snow covering the sidewalks, but this time she didn't feel the cold. Her thick coat and warm boots helped her weather the cold better. But what really warmed her was the contentment in her heart. Behind her, a team of volunteers busily moved boxes from trucks into the center. The boxes were filled with warm blankets, winter coats, wool socks, and hot meals. Each item was carefully packaged and labeled by her team at Carter & Partners. Carter & Partners. "Amanda, I've checked the quilt shipment. They're all in order," a young volunteer named Mia reported. Amanda nodded. "Good, Mia. Remind everyone to leave blankets and coats near the entrance, so anyone who needs them can grab them." "Yes, ma'am," Mia replied with a smile, then turned back to work. Amanda looked around. A year ago, she had been an outsider, struggling with her own life, but now she was part of a circle of kindness. She not only received, but also gave. She was no longer alone. She had a steady job, kind colleagues, and a clear purpose: to help those in need. Late at night, as she sat in her office doing data entry, Amanda would think about the homeless man she had met that night. What was he doing? Had he found shelter? She had returned to the grocery store several times hoping to see him again, but he was nowhere to be found. There were times when she wondered if the $20 would really help him, but every time the thought crossed her mind, she reminded herself, "The important thing is that I tried to do the right thing." Ethan had once told her in a meeting, "Sometimes it doesn't matter what the outcome will be. What matters is that you chose to do the right thing." That statement echoed in her mind. At the end of December, Amanda and her team decided to host a special event, Warmth for All Day. It was a fundraising event that called for support from the community and other companies to help the town's homeless have a warmer winter. Posters promoting the event were hung all over the city. For just $10, you can donate a coat to someone in need. Below was an image of a hand holding another's hand, simple but meaningful. The homeless shelter was packed that day. A tent was set up in a large corner of the yard to distribute clothes, blankets, and hot meals. Volunteers in red life jackets ran back and forth, sorting the supplies. Laughter and chatter echoed throughout. Ethan showed up in a warm suit, but he didn't just stand there and watch. He rolled up his sleeves, helped distribute the food, and chatted with those who came to receive it. Every time Amanda saw him like this, she felt his sincerity and humility. Seeing all this, "Do you regret giving that $20? Ethan asked, as he stood next to her on the sidelines. "Ah." Amanda turned to look at him, her eyes shining with determination. "Not at all. I just regret not doing this sooner." Ed gave her a belt check of quick stamps, and then she stood back and looked at them. Ethan laughed, nodding in satisfaction. "That's why I chose you, Amanda. Not only are you a good person, you have the courage to put that good into action." Warmth for All Day event was a huge success. Over 200 homeless people received coats, blankets, and hot meals. Local businesses, stores, and even individuals donated generously. The most special thing was that at the end of the event, Ethan stood in front of all the volunteers and gave Amanda a surprise gift. "Because of all you have done for us and for the community, I would like to announce that from next month, you will be the official project manager of the charity department at Carter & Partners." The announcement brought a burst of applause. Amanda stood there, her heart pounding, staring at Ethan in disbelief. Are you serious?" Ethan smiled. "You deserve it, Amanda. You've proven it. This isn't just your job anymore. It's your calling." Emotions were running high. Tears were rolling down her cheeks. She never thought her life could change so quickly. From a poor girl with no money, she became someone who could help hundreds, even thousands of others. 2 weeks after the event, Amanda wrote a post on her personal page. She thought a lot before writing because she wanted to send the most sincere message. Her status was short but profound. "A year ago, I gave my last $20 to a man on the side of the road. That day, I didn't know what I would eat tomorrow, how I would live, but I gave it anyway." Today I realized that sometimes what you give will come back to you in a different, bigger, more beautiful form. Don't be afraid to give kindness, even when you're not sure what you have to give back, because kindness is not an exchange, it's a gift. The post received hundreds of shares and comments from strangers who witnessed the event at the center. Many said they had met someone like Amanda, an anonymous but compassionate person. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. And at the end of the post, Amanda left a short line. I hope someone somewhere will have the courage to give away their last $20, he said. Amanda's life demonstrates a powerful lesson. Kindness is never wasted. From her last $20, she received a new life, not only for herself, but for those she helped. Her story is a reminder to all of us that, in a cold world, kindness is a warm flame that can spread from one person to another. And who knows, maybe somewhere the homeless man she helped that day is holding a $20 bill, about to do the same. And that's the story of how a small act of kindness can change a life. Sometimes, what you give not only helps others, but also opens new doors for yourself. If this story touches you, remember that kindness always has the power to spread. Don't hesitate to give kindness, because you never know who needs it the most. See you at Kindness Stories, where the miracle of kindness is always present all around us.